Can we explore together, my friend, this heavy burden you carry every day, these worries that seem to multiply like shadows in your mind? From the moment you wake until your head hits the pillow at night, the mind is churning with concerns. Will I have enough money for retirement? What if I get sick? Is my child struggling at school? Did I say the wrong thing in that conversation yesterday? What if I lose my job? These worries consume your mental energy, steal your peace, and keep you from experiencing the fullness of life that is available right now. But why does the mind create these endless scenarios of future catastrophe? And more importantly, is it possible to live with intelligence and responsibility without this constant undercurrent of anxiety? Watch what is happening in your mind right now as we speak. Even as you listen to these words, part of your attention may be drifting to something you need to worry about later today, tomorrow, next week. This is the nature of the worried mind. It cannot rest fully in the present because it's always projecting into an uncertain future, always scanning for potential problems, always preparing for disasters that may never come. Consider how your day typically begins. You wake up, and before your feet touch the floor, the mind is already active with today's concerns. What if traffic is terrible and I am late for that important meeting? What if my presentation does not go well? What if that pain in my back is something serious? Notice how these worries are about things that have not happened yet, may never happen, yet they feel completely real and urgent in this moment. But let me ask you something very simple. What is actually happening right now? Right now, you are breathing, you are alive, you are capable of hearing these words. In this present moment, there is no traffic jam, no failed presentation, no medical emergency. There is simply what is. Yet the mind abandons this reality to live in imaginary futures filled with imaginary problems. This habit of worrying is so deeply ingrained that we rarely question whether it serves any useful purpose. We tell ourselves that worrying is responsible, that it helps us prepare for challenges, that it shows we care about the important things in life. But does worrying actually solve problems? Or does it create additional suffering on top of whatever real challenges we face? When you worry about money, does the worrying itself improve your financial situation? When you lie awake at night anxious about your health, does this anxiety make you healthier? When you spend your commute mentally rehearsing all the ways a conversation might go wrong, does this preparation actually lead to better communication? Usually, the opposite is true. Worry clouds judgment, depletes energy, and often creates the very problems it seeks to avoid. Let's look at a specific example from your daily life. Perhaps you have a teenage child who has been staying out later than usual, spending time with friends you do not know well. The worried mind immediately begins creating stories. What if they are getting into trouble? What if they are experimenting with drugs or alcohol? What if something terrible happens to them? These worries feel like love, like responsible parenting. But watch what they actually create. Your worry makes you tense and suspicious when your child comes home. Instead of creating space for open communication, your anxiety creates an atmosphere of interrogation. Your child senses your fear and becomes defensive or secretive. The relationship becomes strained by your attempts to control an uncertain situation. And ironically, this strain may push your child further away, creating the very distance you feared. Now, this does not mean becoming careless or irresponsible. You can have appropriate conversations about safety, set reasonable boundaries, stay involved in your child's life. But you can do all of this from a place of love and trust rather than from fear and worry. When you approach your child with genuine interest rather than anxious interrogation, when you listen without immediately jumping to worst-case scenarios, you create the kind of relationship where they actually want to share what is happening in their lives. Consider another common source of daily worry: financial security. You check your bank balance and immediately the mind begins calculating. Will I have enough for this month's expenses? What about unexpected costs? What if I cannot afford my child's college education? What if I can never retire? These financial worries can consume hours of mental energy every day, creating stress that affects your health, your relationships, your ability to enjoy the abundance that may already exist in your life. But examine these financial worries carefully. How much of your financial anxiety is based on actual present circumstances? And how much is based on imaginary future scenarios? You may have sufficient money for your current needs, yet you suffer as if you are already destitute because of fears about what might happen years from now. This is not to suggest being financially irresponsible, but to see how worry about money often creates more suffering than actual financial challenges. When you worry about money, you cannot think clearly about money. Anxiety clouds your judgment, makes you either overly conservative or recklessly impulsive in your financial decisions. But when you approach money matters from a clear present awareness, you can assess your actual situation honestly, make wise decisions based on reality rather than fear, and take practical steps to improve your financial security without the exhausting mental drama of constant worry. The worried mind loves to focus on health concerns. Every ache, every unusual sensation in the body becomes a potential catastrophe. You feel tired, and immediately the mind wonders if this is a sign of serious illness. You get a headache, and you worry about brain tumors. You have indigestion, and you fear heart problems. This constant health anxiety creates actual stress on the body, depleting the very vitality and immune function that support genuine health. Of course, it is intelligent to pay attention to your body's signals to seek medical care when appropriate, to take reasonable steps to maintain your health. But there's a vast difference between intelligent body awareness and compulsive health worry. When you observe a symptom with calm attention, you can assess whether it requires professional attention without adding layers of anxiety that serve no useful purpose. The mind also worries extensively about relationships. Did my friend seem distant on the phone? Is my partner losing interest in me? What if my children do not love me when they grow up? What if I end up alone? These relationship worries often become self-fulfilling prophecies. When you approach relationships from anxiety rather than love, when you are constantly scanning for signs of rejection or abandonment, you create the very tension and neediness that can damage connections with others. But watch what happens when you give your full presence to the people in your life without the filter of worry. When you listen to your friend without mentally analyzing their tone for hidden meanings. When you spend time with your partner without scanning for problems in the relationship. When you enjoy your children without worrying about whether you're doing everything right as a parent, relationships naturally deepen and flourish. Work provides another fertile ground for daily worries. Will my boss approve of this project? What if I make a mistake? What if the company downsizes? What if I never find a job I truly enjoy? These work-related anxieties can make every day feel like a struggle for survival, turning what could be creative contribution into a constant battle with insecurity. Yet observe people who excel in their work, who seem to flow with their professional challenges rather than fighting them. They are typically not the people who worry most about their performance. They are the people who give their complete attention to the task at hand, who learn from mistakes rather than agonizing about them, who approach challenges with curiosity rather than anxiety. One of the most pervasive daily worries involves time. There is not enough time to get everything done. I am falling behind. I should be more productive. What if I waste my life? This relationship with time as an enemy, as something to be battled and conquered, creates a constant background stress that colors every activity. You are always rushing to get through this moment, to get to the next one, always feeling that life is happening too fast or too slow, but never just right. But time is not actually the problem. Your relationship with time is the problem. When you are fully present to what you are doing, when you give your complete attention to the task at hand, time seems to expand. You accomplish more with less effort, enjoy activities more fully, and discover that rushing actually slows you down by fragmenting your attention and creating mistakes that require correction. As the day progresses and worries accumulate, notice how they begin to feed on each other. You worry about your presentation at work, which makes you distracted during dinner with your family, which makes you worry about being a good parent, which keeps you awake at night, which makes you tired the next day, which affects your work performance, which gives you more to worry about. This cycle of worry creates its own momentum, its own self-perpetuating reality. But What happens when you step out of this cycle entirely? What happens when you recognize that worry is optional, that it is a mental habit rather than a necessity? This does not mean becoming careless or irresponsible. It means distinguishing between intelligent planning and compulsive worrying, between appropriate concern and psychological suffering. When a real challenge arises in your life, you can meet it with your full intelligence and resources without adding the extra burden of worry. You can take practical steps to address problems without mentally rehearsing disasters. You can care deeply about the people and things that matter to you without exhausting yourself with anxious scenarios about everything that could go wrong. The key insight is recognizing that worry is something the mind does, not something that happens to you. You are not your worries any more than you are your thoughts or your emotion. You are the awareness in which worries arise and dissolve. When you see this clearly, when you recognize yourself as the spacious awareness rather than the contents of awareness, worries lose their compulsive power over you. This evening, as you prepare for sleep, instead of reviewing the day's concerns and tomorrow's potential problems, try something different. Simply notice that you are alive, that you have made it through another day, that you have the capacity to rest and regenerate. Feel your body relaxing into the bed. Sense your breath naturally slowing down. Allow your mind to rest from its constant activity. In this natural settling, in this simple being, present to the end of the day, you may discover that peace is not something you need to create or achieve. It is something that emerges naturally when you stop feeding the machinery of worry. When you allow yourself to rest in the simple reality of what is actually happening now. This peace is always available, my friend. Not as an escape from life's challenges, but as the ground from which you can meet any challenge with clarity, intelligence, and grace.